So basically, I just look at the skull on my desk and I kind of contemplate it for a little while, and I actually pick it up and kind of look at it. And then throughout the day when I look at it on my desk, it just kind of triggers that thought, that reminder to meditate on death. But I'm kind of at the point where I don't really need a skull to meditate on death, because I'm able to kind of it comes to my mind throughout the day, but it still helps. In my family, we have 3 generations of funeral homes on one side and 2 generations of funeral homes on the other side. I think death is kind of in my blood. People assume that because I became an atheist, I didn't really have a very strong faith, but I really was a faithful child. I definitely believed in God. But at the same time, I always had doubts. The first time I doubted whether God existed, I had that moment like emblazoned in my mind. It was like all the walls of the house crumbled around me, and I felt like I was like in this vacuum. So as I grew up, I became more and more questioning and skeptical. And when I was 14, I left the church and I told my dad and my mom that I didn't believe in God and I didn't want to be confirmed, and that they shouldn't think that this is a phase, because it wasn't. I was done. About a year after I graduated from college, one of my good friends was climbing a mountain in Alaska, and he fell and he passed away. It kind of was a watershed moment for me, because I started to ask myself, where is my friend right now? As an atheist, I obviously didn't think that anything happened after death, but I started to ask myself, is that the end of the story? And so I had to think, what do I believe about life after death? If the reality is that we are just buried in the ground and we rot and that's the end of it, I'm okay with that, if that's the truth. But I really had a desire to know the truth, and I realized that in order to know the truth about that, I had to expose myself to what other people believe and really wrestle with it. It started to open me to, I wouldn't say a belief in God, but the possibility that there's more than material reality, that maybe there's a spiritual reality in the world also. One morning as I was walking, I was filled with gratitude for how beautiful it was. And at the same time that I felt really grateful for the beauty, there was this huge gust of wind, and it felt like a tree was gonna fall on me. And I actually stopped in the road and felt kind of scared. It was kind of a mix of those two feelings, like intense gratitude and intense fear. And in that moment, it was almost like God introduced himself to me. Like I just knew right in that instant that God existed and that he loved me and that he had a plan for my life. I don't even know how to describe it. I just knew. I knew him from that moment on. Like I just knew God. I think death has been kind of popping up in my life in different ways. In that question of, does God exist, when I was 5 years old, that was really a question of, what does death mean? When I said I am an atheist at the age of 14, what I was saying is death is meaningless. After college, when I was struck with the reality of my friend's death, that was bringing death to the forefront of my mind, even though it was always running in the background and asking me, what are you going to do with this? But after my conversion, I think God has kind of helped me to see eternity kind of coming into my life. And the moment of my conversion was a glimpse of eternity. The practice of memento mori for me has been something that has helped me to look back on my life and to see how death has been kind of with me this entire time. Death is this paradox that we enter into. It can be negative, it can be dark, but in death, I see eternity, I see Jesus. The darkness and abyss of death has been filled with light.